we're delighted to have both of you with us. I know that it was some driving, I think, for both of you, especially for you. And it's so great that you're willing to do that and come out to the stores. We're rebuilding audiences and rebuilding the faith of authors to come out and do something like that. Sorry, I was going to remind everyone to turn off their
I
phones.
should probably do that too.
But it's much appreciated that you do it, and it'll get better as people get used to coming out and doing things. So I'll wait till you're seated, and I will formally introduce everybody.
Okay. I'm not that popular. A lot of people would call, but you never know.
But they'll call now.
Yes, they will call now. Yes. Oops, I bumped you. Sorry.
I know they're a little high, but it works well with the books on the table.
That's fine.
I have a little stool that I use, so consider yourselves lucky. You got on it all by yourselves. Okay. No, I appreciate authors doing what you two have done. You've taken up part of your Sunday, given it up, and driven all this way to come to Book Carnival. And it means a lot to me. It means a lot to the customers when they see this. And we hope you follow up with your following books and keep coming.
Great.
It means a lot for us, and I hope it does the same for you. Increases your visibility.
Yeah. Absolutely, we appreciate it.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
So
Thank
we'll
you for
go
having
from
us.
there. So we have, on my far right, Carlene O'Connor with her book, No Strangers Here. And then Dorothy Howell with Seems Like Murder. Very different approaches to mystery suspense, I believe. But we're going to find out because they're going to tell us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mary, would you like to start and tell us about your book?
Sure. This debut, No Strangers Here, is the first in a new, darker mystery series. I have a few other Irish mystery series that are in the cozy genre. I write the Irish Village Mysteries, and I'll be working on book 10 soon in that series. And there are 2 books in the Home to Ireland series of yet other characters. But this is the first in a darker mystery series, so I'm really excited about the book. The protagonist is a veterinarian in Dingle, and if you've ever been to Dingle, it's a charming, colorful town on the Atlantic Ocean. So it's both charming, but obviously the cliffs and the fields and the churning weather, because of the ocean patterns, makes really nice atmosphere for a murder mystery. And it's the Gael Tract region, so not everyone, but a lot of people there do speak Irish, and the signage will be both in English and Irish. So it's a really great town and setting to put a murder mystery in. And like I said, my protagonist, Dr. Dimpna Wilde, has to leave her veterinarian practice in Dublin to come home. She hasn't been home in a long time because of past events that have kept her from going home. But a body is found washed up on Clogher Strand, and it is a very prominent, wealthy man in town, and he's dressed in a suit, and there are black stones next to him, spelling out his what they assume is spelling out his age. They're not sure. There are different clues at the site. And Dimpna Wilde's parents, because of clues at the scene, are both suspects in the murder inquiry. Dimpna's father was a prominent veterinarian in town, but unfortunately he has Alzheimer's right now, so she can't even trust what he's telling her about what he knows about this murder. So it's kind of a family first. It's the O'Reillys kind of against the Wildes, and lots of interesting characters, including a detective inspector that comes into play. So I'm really excited about the book, and currently working on book 2 in that series. But I'll shut up for a little bit and see what's going on with your book, Dorothy.
This book is a cozy mystery, and anytime, of course, you have a cozy mystery, it has to have a theme. The title of this book is Seems Like Murder. I don't know if you can tell from the back, but Seems is spelled S-E-A-M-S because the theme of this book is sewing. And it's about a young woman who lives in Los Angeles, and her life just falls apart. And so she retreats to Hideaway Grove, which is a little town where she spent summers with her aunt when she was young. So she goes there for some peace and quiet, and to try to figure out what to do with her life. And of course, as soon as she gets there, somebody's murdered, and she becomes a suspect. So her car gets towed to the crime lab, and even though she had gone there because she wanted to be there, well, now she can't leave because she doesn't have a car. So she gets involved with, of course, solving the murder. And her aunt owns the bakery, and there is a big storage room. So the main character, whose name is Abby, she takes the storage room and turns it into a sewing studio, because she gets involved with the charity project in town, which was making pillowcase dresses for little girls in Africa. So she's doing that while she's trying to solve this murder. This is the first book in a new series from Kensington. The second book, actually I've already written the second book, and it will be out next year, and it's time to start writing the third one here pretty soon. One of the things I'm asked the most quite often is where I got my inspiration to write the books. Well, this one was pretty easy because, just the darndest things happen from time to time. I had lunch with a friend who was a writer that I hadn't seen in quite some time, and we were having lunch, and she told me she was making pillowcase dresses for little girls in Africa. And I thought, well, that's a really good cause. I learned to sew when I was quite young, but my older sister helped me a lot. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that too. So I started making the pillowcase dresses. This is several years ago. So I just happened to have one with me right now. This is what they look like.
Oh. Hold on. Oh. Not getting it right. Okay, thank you.
And they're really simple to make. You can see that this is actually the pillowcase. And then you just put some elastic in it, and you use bias tape to do the armholes, and then they go over the shoulder and tie. I like to put a little extra on them, so I put some lace usually or something on them. So I started making these several years ago. I've actually made and donated over 1,000 dresses now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and they're really fun for me to make,
Wow.
and I do enjoy it. I do enjoy the sewing. So
I think that's a perfect example of like the difference between a darker mystery and a cozy, because what I would use a pillowcase for is like put over somebody's head, right, before you drag them away to a dark place. But a cozy, you would make little sweet dresses out of them.
yes. No, nobody's doing anything, in a cozy like that. No way. No. So I have another book that's out. This one is called Shop Till You Drop Dead, and it's about a young woman from Kansas who ends up in Los Angeles, and she gets a job with a concierge service where she is a personal shopper for D-list customers in Hollywood. And she gets, what she wants to do though is she wants to be in their investigations department because her sister's gone missing. So she volunteers in case to find a missing dog. But when she gets there at the mansion in Beverly Hills, there's no missing dog. There's a vintage suitcase full of cash, a handgun, a secret room, and a murder to solve. So that's the second book that I had out this year. So,
Okay.
So what else have you got going, Mary? Oh, I'm not supposed to call you Carlene, sorry.
Yeah. Who is this? I'm working on the second book, and this will be called the County Kerry Mystery Series. I'm working on the second one called Some of Us Are Looking. What's interesting, my Irish Village mystery, all the titles are Murder in an Irish Village, Murder at an Irish Wedding. It's always murder at something Irish. Now with this series, we're taking all the titles, and when I say we, discussed with my editor and I, we're taking all the titles from popular Irish sayings. So No Strangers Here is from the William Butler Yeats. There are no strangers here, only friends you haven't yet met. And with Some of Us Are Looking, it's an Oscar Wilde quote that I found, which is, "We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. So I'm currently about 91,000 words into that one. It's due January 1st, and just having some fun with the same Dr. Dimpna Wild, the veterinarian, and Detective Inspector Cormac O'Brien. And in this one, there's a caravan of 20-something kind of traveling around Ireland, and they're causing a bit of trouble in the town of Camp, which is right near Dingle. And unfortunately, one of the young persons is found murdered, and their caravan, they have animals that they're kind of entertaining for the tourists. And my detective inspector, he has allergies to animals, but it's also he has a phobia of being around animals. I think is more so his case than the allergies. He uses the allergies kind of as a smokescreen, but. So that's why Dimpna, our veterinarian, often will be getting involved in the cases to help him out, because all the suspects have animals and all the farms they have to visit and so on. So that's the believable way I've found to kind of bring her into the mystery, is tie it in with the people and the animals. And then I have to work on a novella for the Irish Village Mystery Series, and then the 10th book in the Irish Village Mysteries. So kind of a constant rotation of one book comes out and you're promoting it, and then you're writing another, you might be editing a third. You probably are the same way. What are you working on now?
Well, as I said, the second book in the sewing series, I finished it, and it's supposed to be out next year. And I have to do the proposal now for book 3. And I've got kind of an idea of what I want to do with that. It's not due till January, so I don't have to panic over that quite yet. The panic will be coming up probably mid-December, I guess.
Oh, I was going to say, 'cause mine's due January too. I didn't know when to panic.
Yeah.
I started panicking early, so I can put that off a bit until December.
Just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. Well, Mary, maybe you could tell us how you got started with writing.
Oh, well, I think my first short story was when I was 4 years old. The Boy and the Mouse. Oh, boy said the boy a mouse. Oh, boy said the mouse a boy. You don't need to rush out and get it or anything. But, and I made a little cover for it and stapled it together. Like, I was very serious about this being a book. And then I went on, and I was just always writing. It wasn't, I had a goal to become an actress, and I went to American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City, and I did a lot of theater. But as I was doing that, I was always writing. When I did theater, I was writing plays. And my sister became a screenwriter, and which is why I'm in LA now, because my sister's here. And she sold her first screenplay and got an agent, and I had just had a play that had a stage reading in New York, and the play went to her agent. And make a long story short, my sister would not pass my screenplay on to her agent because I did not know what I was doing. So, kind of as revenge, I decided to write a novel. And I was living in Seattle on a houseboat, and I had just gotten divorced, and the houseboat was rocking every time it rained. It was like all the time. So it was just my own personal goal to write a novel, and a New Year's goal, and then I kind of ran it off into a ditch. Like, I would write a lot, but I would never finish anything, and I thought I had a psychological problem, like I can never finish these books. But then I took a course that kind of helped teach me why I was never finishing anything, and it really was on the craft of writing a really good story. And so after taking that course, I reworked that mess of a novel, and to everyone's surprise, including me, about 9 months later, when I thought I had something there, I just started querying agents, and I got an agent in 2 weeks, and he sold it to Kensington 4 months later. And this is 16 years now that I've been with Kensington. I've been writing a book a year, sometimes 3 books a year for them. So hope I didn't make that too long, but that's the story.
Quite a journey.
Yeah.
Your family sounds very talented.
Well, my sister and I both ended up writers, and she went to film school, I went to acting school, and so both our parents were surprised. I didn't know. None of us knew this would happen. But, how about you? What is your writing journey been?
Oh, well, good gracious. I knew that I wanted to be a writer in the 8th grade when I was 13. That was I grew up in rural Virginia, and that was our first year of high school was the 8th grade. And that my English teacher was Mr. Donovan. He was from Florida. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seemed very worldly to know somebody from Florida, in rural Virginia. But he did a class on creative writing, and I thought, I just lit up. Oh my God, something in school is finally interesting. So I was just really thrilled. I mean, I couldn't wait to get home and tell my mother I knew what I wanted to do with my life. And she was not happy. She actually said that was a stupid idea. So I did put it off for a long time. My life took a different turn, and but you know what? I just couldn't ever let go of the thought that I would be a writer. And so many years later, I actually said, you know what? I'm gonna try to write a book just to see if I can do it. And so I started writing, and I would work on the book. At this time, I was married. I had a job that was about 50 hours a week. My husband was active duty Air Force, so he would be gone for weeks and months at a time. I had a 9-year-old and a baby in the crib, and well, what better time to start to write a book? So I worked on it, and to tell you the truth, there'd be times I would just be so completely overcome with doubt. I would say, who am I really to think that I could write a book? I'd never been to college. I didn't know anything about writing. I'd never been to a writing class. I didn't know they existed. But you know what? I just had to keep going. I just had to. So I actually finished the book. It was historical romance. And I sent it out to 9 different publishers. At the time, I didn't have to have an agent. You could query an editor directly. And it got rejected 9 times. 9 times. I came home from work, and laying there in that dust on the doormat was my rejected manuscript. Now, of course, only being rejected 9 times, well, shoot, that's nothing. But actually, that book sold. And so it was my first book that came out. And so I thought, well, hey, this is great. I can quit my job pretty soon now. But everything after that was rejected. I wrote books, and they got rejected. I think 3 or 4 books. So I finally decided, you know what, maybe it's me, maybe it's not them. So I started going to writers' conferences and workshops, and to try to learn the craft of writing. And so it took 7 years. 7 years, but my second book sold, and it was another historical romance. And then I got an agent, and the publisher went well, and then I got with Harlequin, which was the biggest publisher of romantic fiction at the time. And it went really well. I quit my job. And I wrote probably, I think 23 or 24 romances. And it was a wonderful time. My writing really connected with their readers, which is, what you want. And so I wrote 2 books a year for them. Sometimes I wrote 3 books a year, and occasionally I wrote 4 books a year for Harlequin. And they gave me like a 3-book deal, a 2-book deal, blind contracts. It was really wonderful. But I began to see a shift in publishing, and the historical romances were falling out of fashion. And I didn't want to be left without a dance partner when the music stopped. So I thought, I think I'll give a try with mystery. And so I wrote a mystery that I thought was going to be, a one-time thing. It was a cozy mystery. It was called the Haley Randolph mystery, and the theme of that was designer handbags, because I'm like somewhat of a nut about designer handbags. And so I got a new agent with that, and he actually called me the next day after he said he'd represent the book. And I thought, well, this is strange. You must have a question about something. And he'd already sold the book. But he said, they want a series. They want a 3-book series. Do you think you can write that? And I said, well, yes, of course. And so that went very well. I wrote 9 books for them. And then I started publishing some of the books myself, novellas. And so I actually have 2 other mystery series. One is this one, of the Shop Till You Drop Dead series that I published myself, I've sold the rights to the paperbacks and the audiobooks and things. And then another series, the Dana McKenzie series that I've done myself. And then I decided to do this one about the pillowcase dresses. So I got an offer for a 2-book deal from a publisher, and I was really thrilled because it was a big publisher. But when I saw the contract that they sent, I said, this is just not going to go along with where I want my writing to go. So I said, thank you very much, but I'm going to have to pass on that. And so I told my agent, and he said, he was really nice about it. He'd put in a lot of work. but he was really nice about it. I'd had him for a long time. So I thought, well, you know what, I'll just publish this one too, myself. And then he actually emailed me a couple days later and said he had been speaking with my old editor at Kensington, and he was looking for a new series, and he was specifically looking for something with needles, sewing needles, knitting needles, that kind of thing. And this book was about sewing, so he said, yeah, he wanted to see it. And so the book was finished by then. So I sent it to him, and he gave me a 3-book deal for that. So I was really thankful for that. It worked out really, really well. So right now I'm really just enjoying working on this series and see what happens next. Because I don't know.
I think that's kind of common thread, I think, maybe with a lot of writers, and it takes like a lot of bravery to turn down something. Because early in my career, I wasn't making a ton of money yet. Before I wrote murder mysteries, I was writing contemporary fiction, and some of them would do okay, but they weren't a brand. Like, they weren't, every book kind of didn't give you the same feel, which you kind of learn that writers like that. You know, it's like, give me this, just slightly different. And I was offered to ghostwrite a book for somebody really famous, and but my name wasn't going to be on it at all, right? Just complete hidden background, and I was still writing my own books, and I just said to my agent, I said, that doesn't feel right to me, and I remember, we have the same agent, right? And yes. I remember he said, I'm really proud of you. And I thought, oh, okay. He said, yeah, I think you're making the right choice. And again, it's not that there would have been anything wrong with ghostwriting if somebody wants to do that, but as a new writer, like, you can kind of be desperate, or you want to get to a certain place, and it can be hard to turn down things that you think might be lucrative, but like, I've made some of those decisions that now, looking back, I'm really happy I made them.
As it turned out, I think turning down that other contract, the first one I got for the Sewing Studio Mystery, turned out to be the best thing, because I got a 3-book deal instead of a 2-book deal. They bought it out in hardcover instead of paperback. They've already sold the audio rights, some of the foreign rights. So it'll come out in paperback next year too. So, and I had worked with the editor before at Kensington, so I felt there was a comfort level there. So it worked out well. I do feel like I made the right decision, although it was a hard decision to make. It was one of the big 5 publishers that do a lot of publicity, but it just wasn't for me. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with that contract. They weren't trying to deceive me or cheat me, or there's no fraud, nothing. It just wasn't right for me.
Yeah. I wonder, does anyone have any questions? We could probably just keep talking all day, but if anybody might have questions.
Who do you like to read?
I'm an eclectic reader, so I read cross genres. Currently, I've been reading a lot of psychological thrillers, psychological thriller mysteries. I just finished Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulek. How do you pronounce that last name? That's a hard last name to pronounce.
I'm going to have to learn.
Yeah, and Ruth Ware's The It Girl, and the author is escaping me at the moment, but I just bought yesterday Lessons in Chemistry. Barnes & Noble, I think, named that their book of the year, so I'm curious to try that out.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Psychological thriller, I think, lately has been my favorite genre. I like getting lost and kind of that mental thrills of something going on.
Wow. Yeah.
How about you, Dorothy?
I have favorite fiction authors that I always read. Laura Levine, she writes the cozy mysteries. Hannah Dennison writes cozy mysteries, and they're all set in England. She's from there, and she just has the most beautiful British accent. It's just lovely. But what I find myself reading most often when I'm out of my favorite fiction, I read nonfiction. You just give me a good shipwreck, an earthquake, a volcano, something like that. And I think there's something wrong with me. I don't know what it is. But I do love the nonfiction, these big disaster books. I don't know why, but I do read all of them. It
sounds good to me.
I don't know, but I do enjoy those.
Yeah. We were all talking about Devil in the White City.
Yes.
I really liked that.
Yes.
Oldie but goodie.
Anything he writes is good.
Yeah.
I know, it's just amazing, really.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
subject that you would not normally want to spend time on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
You both, I always marvel at this with authors, but it seems like most authors have known since early childhood that this is what they wanted to do. Not that all of them take that and go with it, or we'd have more authors than we could deal with. But the determination from both of you is amazing to me. That was hard.
Yeah.
So it's something very deeply ingrained that you just have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a remarkable thing. Now, have you actually spent time in Ireland?
I have, yes. So I lived 15. Based in Chicago now, even though I'm out here for a year. But before Chicago, I lived 15 years in New York City. So all my friends were Irish. I would hang out in Irish pubs. A lot of research in Irish pubs. But my great grandmother came over from Ireland, from Ballymena in the north. And then when I was living in New York City, I had multiple Irish boyfriends. One of whom took me, my first trip to Ireland, he took me to his hometown, Kilmallock in County Limerick, which became Kilbane for the Irish Village mystery series. And in fact, I was just talking to him a half an hour ago. We're still really good friends, and like every time I write a book, he's like, "How'd you kill me this time?" So, and what was great about going to Ireland first time with him is that he had a big support of family and friends, and so, and you know, his friend James just drove us all over Ireland, and including Dingle and the Ring of Kerry. And then I returned on my own twice since then and spent about a month each time. My latest trip was 2019 in the fall, and I'm here for a year helping out with a family member, but I'm hoping in the future to spend even more than a month. I'd like to, I think they don't let you spend more than 3 months before you have to leave and come back, but however long they'll let me stay, I would definitely plan on spending a lot more time.
That sounds wonderful. Maybe I should set some books in another country.
Yeah.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah. It gives you an excuse and a write-off.
Yes, exactly. Need those write-offs.
And I didn't have to feel guilty about going to Irish pubs, so there's that. The first time I was writing a book set in Ireland, it wasn't a mystery, but it was called The Pub Across the Pond. And it was about an American woman who wins a pub in Ireland. And, you know, I'd go into the pub and, you know, people would, be telling a good story, you know, and they'd say one of two things. They'd lean across the bar and they'd go, "Don't put that in the bleeping book." Or they'd lean across the bar and say, "You can put that in the book." So it was fun to get a lot of my material, though. Some of it, you know, got hazier as the night went on. But I love going to Ireland and hope to go back a lot more. Maybe even live or retire there. It's a possibility.
That sounds wonderful.
Well, that does sound nice, doesn't it?
But on the other hand, you're in the southern area. True?
Well, originally from Virginia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I live here now, though.
And it's a beautiful place to be, and beautiful cities and countryside. So it's lovely, but an excuse to travel is always good.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Does anyone, yes, Carol.
Two-part question. Did either of you have any input on your covers?
You know, it's funny, my editor always asks me for cover ideas, and I always give him cover ideas, and the covers never look anything like it, but he still always asks me, so I don't want to be rude and say, "Do I really have to do this because you never use the ideas?" So we go through this dance, but I really love the jobs they do, and this one, I don't know,
The way
if
the
you noticed
no-
it, but
the
they
no
actually
is-
embossed it so you can see the rain. So if you, yeah, it's really cool.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Well, I was noticing the way
it's
the
raining.
no.
So I really love the job that they did with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
But you're right. The
Yeah.
no is hidden.
yeah. The no is
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
I thought because that kind of catches your eye. You look at it, you go, "Am I missing something?" Oh no, it's right behind the bushes. It's
Yeah, I was really, really thrilled with this cover, so I'm excited, and I've seen the cover copy for the second one, and it's really cool too. So, not always as I imagine it, but I'm kind of used to that as an author now. My very first novel had kind of and it was more women's fiction. It had kind of a cartoony cover on it, and I remember being disappointed. And I had lunch with my editor, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's very normal for authors to be disappointed with their first cover." He said, "Same with me. I imagined this artistic thing, but then publishing is so brand oriented. They're trying to find a cover that will appeal to buyers, and they have other things in mind. And there was one book, there was like a dog with the engagement ring in its mouth, and there's no dog in the book. And so I remember saying to him, John, there's no dog in the book. And he goes, it's not literal. Don't worry about it. But this cover I'm in love with, so I was lucky.
Well, as it turns out, Barry and I just met each other a few weeks ago when we started doing book signings. But as it turns out, we have the same publisher, the same editor,
Wow.
and the same agent.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
Small world.
Yeah, small world. Yes. So I have the same story with the cover. That the editor asked me for a list of ideas of what would be in the book, and this one came pretty close. It came pretty close. So I was really happy. I was happy with that, the way it turned out. I've had covers in the past. This is my 48th book. So as you can imagine, there have been a lot of covers, and some of them, most I was quite happy with. Really early in my career, I think this was my second book, they changed the title, and I didn't even know it until I got my author's copies in the mail. And so it's been a little bit up and down with the covers. Some of them, I did a romance for Harlequin, and the idea of the book was that she was only 17, and so it's historical, so this is kind of okay. And he was, the hero of the book was like 32, so it was supposed to be about their age difference. But on the cover, they've got him with his children, only he looks like one of the children. He looks like he's 12 years old. Well, you know what? Harlequin's been in business a long time. What's
and
that?
They got the apron dresses on here. That's amazing.
Oh, yes, the pillowcase dresses. Yes.
Or
They were,
pillowcase, rather. Yeah,
Yes,
that's really, wow.
yeah, I felt like they did a good job on this cover. I was really happy with it. I've seen the cover for next year's book, too. It's really surprising how quickly, like a year in advance, they come up with the cover. And I was quite happy with that one, the next one coming out, too. So far, so good.
I like my covers for the Irish Village mysteries too. They're good.
I've read that series for a long time, and always the covers are really good. Yeah.
It's funny what you say about titles. The Irish Village, the first 3 have been translated into German, and I had no idea until a friend who speaks German told me the titles were different than my titles. So Murder in an Irish Village was translated into Murder Ruins the Appetite. And then Murder at an Irish Wedding was Murder with Cold Feet. So I had no idea, but it was fun learning that. I guess getting cold feet to get married or something.
Right. You know, the other series that I was writing for Kensington was the Haley Randolph series, and it was about the handbags. So the covers had handbags on them. And I remember being at the LA Times Festival of Books, and I was in the Sisters in Crime booth, and there was probably 6 or 7 authors lined up, and we all had our books in front of us, and it was a big crowd. But you would see people who were attending, they would come and they would just walk in front of the table and they would just look at the covers.
Yeah.
That's all they looked at. And they'd come back if they saw one that looked intriguing. And so that really is a real demonstration of how important the cover is for people to catch their eye and for it to show something that people are going to be attracted to. We got a lot of handbag lovers with all the handbags on the covers. So yeah.
So they really do judge a book by its cover.
Yes, they really
People
do.
do. Some people do.
They really do.
And you're thinking up ideas for your stories. What's the most fun part of that?
What's the most fun part of the torture? For me, first drafts are torture for me, and coming up, and my sweet spot is rewriting. Like, I really love rewriting and making a scene better. So for me, the fun part, I just have to be honest, is when all the ideas you do come up with and try out, when they start forming a picture and they start clicking together, and that's when I know, okay, I'm safe ground now. Now I can just try to go deeper, what else is going on underneath the surface. And that's why also I find the first book in a series probably double the work for me, because I have to get to know all the characters and the setting before I even figure out what the murder is and all the suspects and the secrets. I have to know this world and the people. So that can be, a challenge too. And that took me a long time with No Strangers Here. Now on the second, but I also find it challenging, so far No Strangers Here is my best work. just as a writer of 16 years. And I find it challenging now writing the second, and I'm like constantly in my head trying to like compare it to how good I felt I did on the first one. And I don't know, I guess you just have to like get that out of the way and let the characters and let the story talk to you. But my happy place is when it like, first drafts for me can feel like you're in a cave with a flashlight and the flashlight keeps going off. Like, but when I finally can see and finally have a picture forming, then I start to get excited.
For me, my favorite part is murdering somebody on paper. Yeah, because for me, I have to start with the mystery, because everything else grows out of the mystery. So I like to find out who's getting murdered and then why, and everything comes after that, and that gets woven in with the characters, whatever's going on in their personal lives, what the subplots are for the book. But I think for me, I like to get that done first. So I know I have to know where I'm going in a book. I have to know who the murderer was, and I have to know why. And oddly enough, I've talked to a lot of fiction mystery writers, and they'll say that they'll start to write their book and they don't know who the murderer is. And I thought, well, that's fine. There's no wrong way, no right way to do a book, which is one of the good things about writing, is whatever works for you. So, but that's what works for me, is to find out who I'm going to murder.
So did you learn all that by reading other stuff or just doing the actual writing? I mean, you don't have a criminology background or anything, do you?
No. Oh, no. Well, I've thought of some people, like if you could pick one person you could run over with your car, that kind of thing. But no, nope, no. It's just all writing. I went to a writing seminar many years ago when I was barely thinking maybe I could try to write a mystery, and it was really good. I wish I could remember now who gave it, but the advice that stuck with me out of that day was that to start with a mystery. And I thought, okay, yeah, I like that, and it works for me. And it doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me. Yeah. So, yeah.
When I transitioned into writing mysteries, I had taken that course that helped me write my first one, and full circle, I was then teaching that course in New York City and then North Carolina, and then when the founder passed away, it was called the Writer's Loft. That's what brought me to Chicago. I moved to Chicago, and now I'm the owner of the Writer's Loft, although it's on hold right now, and now I'm so busy writing, I'm not sure what the future of that is. So that helped me just craft fiction. But then switching to murder mysteries, I did have to then I did read a few books on how to write a murder mystery, and, you can glean things from reading other people's mystery if you know the craft you're looking for. But I also my agent had written a few mysteries himself, so I had never really used him for feedback before, but I was nervous about the first mystery, Murder in an Irish Village, and I did get more feedback from my agent who also had written murder mysteries himself, so kind of that combination of things helped me get into it. And I remember my editor, like when I turned it in, he goes, "I didn't know it would be so Irish." It's a lot of, and it's true. I mean, I'm American, except, with Irish background, friends and research. But so a lot of American writers might write an American person going over to Ireland, for the murder mystery. But I had fallen in love with so many people in Ireland that I could kind of use to base characters on, that I made it a whole complete, Irish family. And I said, well, it is so Irish. So, but luckily I think that worked out really well. It's been a really great series.
Now, in both your cases, do you ever have a villain and then change your mind as you're going through the book and decide that someone else really should be the villain?
Yeah, a few times my murderer has changed, and like another character's like, guess what, I did it, and I have a better reason. You're like, oh, that is better. And I think sometimes I just psychologically, once you know your mystery so well and you know who did it, then it just feels so obvious. And sometimes you get a little insecure. You're like, oh, it's so obvious who did it. Well, it's just because I know who did it. But sometimes I start to second guess myself. But it's only been like maybe once or twice that it's changed. And if I find myself getting really excited about the change and it makes more sense, then I'll definitely say, okay, you did it, and not. But most of the time, it's been the same one throughout.
I've never had that happen. That when I actually start the book, I don't start the book until I know everything that's going to happen. All the main plot points are there, and everybody's motivation is there, and their why did you murder this person, and why does it look like you murdered them but you really didn't, the red herrings, in the misdirection. So I always know what that is, and so far I haven't had a need to change that, because I've been able to stick with what my original thoughts were for the story.
That makes it good. Okay. Anything else? I want to thank both of you for a very entertaining.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, and thank you all for being here.
I love the beautiful bookshop.
Oh, it
Glad
is.
to see
It really is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, I really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back for future books. So
Thank you.
keep us in mind.
All righty. Thank you.
Yeah.